And there we go. So welcome everybody. And welcome to whoever watches this, whenever you watch it. I am very excited. My name is Sonia Rodriguez. If this is the first time you're meeting me or getting to know me, I'm very excited to have you in the Beauty Mastermind community. I'm excited to welcome you as a trailblazer, because that's absolutely what you are. This is, to be honest with you, this is kind of new for me. I am very excited about, it's not new for me to be, on social media just talking, but to commit to doing something like a weekly show like this. And I'll be honest, I think that, for the longest time I've been wanting to do something like this, but I have had resistance around it, and around the idea of like, oh my God, what would I talk about week after week after week? So I'm actually very excited for for this to be happening. And it also ties into, what I'm going to be talking about today. So if you're watching, if you're on today, I want to make this as interactive as possible. And I also know that since this is so new, I'm getting this going. I know as an entrepreneur that, the intention that I have is to be here week after week after week, continuing to do what's in my heart to do, which is share information to help others empower themselves and grow their businesses, without being attached to a result. Meaning, doesn't matter how many people showed up. It doesn't matter how many people watch this later on or not. But it's really about setting the intention to do it and staying consistent with it. We're going to talk about more of this today, or I am rather, but also know that I'm going to be answering questions and things like that. So feel free, if you happen to be catching this live, to post any questions that you have into the chat. And I'll make sure that I'm checking from time to time to see, because absolutely this is about you getting your questions answered. But I start with these thoughts that I was having of like, God, can I do this for an extended period of time, hopping onto these lives? What would I talk about? And also, like, will they show up? Will others show up? And the reason I'm saying that is because in this space, in this group, I want to be fully transparent always. And I feel that as a coach and with, my trailblazers, that's one thing that, I always do is I'm always honest, and I always share, not only my secrets to growth, but also the things that come up for me, because in terms of challenges and fears, because it's not just you, I'm just like you. I'm going through these same things, and what I know that I can do and what I do is always show, what it's like to just do the thing, just do it, and not care what happens. What are they going to say? What are they going to think? Will it work? No, those things don't really matter. So this is a case study for me too. This is a project, and I know that this is only the beginning, because I have a huge passion for, having larger events and a larger platform. So, I know that if I stick with this and I keep doing what I love doing, it will happen. It will happen. I'm literally just putting myself in the frequency and the vibration of it. So with that being said, what I'm going to be talking about today is taking accountability, and what that means, what that looks like, because it is something that, honestly, it really has helped me build my business and grow it in a way that is exciting to me. And growing this business has really grown me as a person. I'll say that. I truly love who I am, and I also truly love who I'm becoming, and I also truly love who I've been. And I haven't always been able to say that. And I realized that part of the reason why I was getting stuck, not having the things that I wanted in my life, was because I wasn't accountable. I wasn't loving myself. I didn't know how to do it. And being accountable was definitely one of those things that helped me learn how to love myself. And it really sounds kind of amazing when I say things like that, like learning how to love myself, because you would think that, or at least I thought, like it was just, why wouldn't I love myself? But I realized that within my behavior, within the things that I was doing and the way that I was responding to things, I was clearly showing that the self-love wasn't there. So the more that I started to kind of harness that and learn how to do it, I started to see growth in my business, and I continue to see it. So this is why I wanted to start with this episode first, because as I do more of these, I'm certainly going to be sharing information on sales and some marketing and things like that, things that I'm familiar with. But also I would be lying to you, and it would feel to me irresponsible to not start off by saying that, taking a personal inventory, is, frankly, I feel like it's required. So I wanted to just start here because, having the awareness will give you the choice to move forward in a new way, if you like. And if things are working just fine and things are great, then, keep doing what you're doing. So I did a live on Instagram a couple of days ago announcing that I was going to be, launching this show. And I mentioned that I was going to be talking about accountability, and someone commented like, the 4 agreements, So, and I love how the universe works in the synchronicity, because, when that person made that comment, I was like, oh my God, you're totally right. I could just talk about the 4 agreements and why they're so important. So for those of you that don't know, there's a book called The 4 Agreements, written by Don Miguel Ruiz. I'm just going to say it how it sounds. And basically he outlines 4 agreements to make with the self, that for me have really, it's a short read. If you have the opportunity to read it, I highly recommend it. Doesn't matter what you do in life or whatever, it just helps. But when I loved how simple it was. It just was, hey, if you can stick to these 4 agreements, you're in good shape. So I'm going to share with you how taking accountability, how it ties into these 4 agreements. And it's my intention to also share with you some personal experiences that I've gone through, so that you can see how in real time and in real life these things can be applied. So the first agreement is to be impeccable with your word. And I think we all know what that means. Basically, be careful of what you're saying. As I say it, be conscious of what you're saying, which is an even better word, because be careful. The reason I'm taking that back is because there's a bit of fear there, because like how I've set it up, because if I have to be careful about what I'm saying, then it's like, I'm naturally in some way saying to myself, like, okay, well, if I say something bad's going to happen. So I'm catching my words, because I'm very conscious of what I am putting out into the universe, and there is no need for me to put out any fear into the universe. So when I think of be impeccable with your word, it makes me ask myself, what is it that I'm saying? What am I saying, first of all, to myself? And I have found that, I am a recovering perfectionist, but I have found that I have really, over the years, done a fantastic job of beating myself up. And I have been known amongst my family and my friends for having really high expectations of others, and typically when you have really high expectations of others, that means the expectations you have for yourself are even more than. So if you are a perfectionist, if you've been a perfectionist, you also understand that perfection doesn't exist. So basically it is, setting yourself up to never truly win, because perfection doesn't exist. So I didn't notice it. I don't think I thought that I was, saying to myself, oh, you stupid idiot, what's wrong with you? But what I noticed was that I would say things, if I was speaking to a client, a potential client, let's say if we were talking about a potential booking, when it got to talking about the investment, that would be a perfect instance of when it started. So it would be like, well, I don't think she'll pay that. Who would ever pay this? Who would ever pay this? This doesn't make sense. I should lower my price. This is too much. Things like that. So that kind of talk, I noticed that it was just constantly going, constantly happening in my head. So how I saw it in my business was that I would just talk myself out of even asking for what I really felt that I deserved. So inherently what happened was that I would end up in situations or saying yes to things that didn't really feel right to me, where I didn't really feel valued. And I accepted those things because I felt like I needed it, like I needed the money, like I needed to do it. So, as I've been in coaching myself, I have noticed, certainly the first few months that I was in a coaching program, I noticed how prevalent that was and how I just kept psyching myself out of different opportunities, and my former coach, Alex Moscow, was just amazing because he would always say, well, how do you know? Like if I said I want to do this or I want to offer this, I'm like, but I don't know if it'll work. I don't know if it'll work in the beauty industry. I don't know if people are ready for this. I know coaching works, in business, but I don't know if it works in beauty. And he would always say, well, I would say it's not going to work. That's how I would say it. It would sound definitive. Like, it won't work here, Alex. And he's like, but how do you know? Or if I put together an offer and I was like, but that's really expensive, or no one's going to want this. No, how do you know? And he kept asking me that over and over, and I never had the answer for it. So what he did was really just, implant that question in my head. So, I always ask myself that now, like, well, how do you know? How do you know until you do it? Which ties perfectly into, the launch of this Facebook show. I don't know. I don't know if I have something to talk about for you. I do actually know that I have plenty to talk about for a year or longer. That I do know, but I don't know how it's going to go. How would I possibly know without doing it? So even though I had all this resistance around doing something like this, the commitment of it, can I handle it? Can I show up for it? Can I actually do it? I'm doing it because if I'm really honest with myself, I see that I wasn't rising to the occasion because I was afraid. I was also afraid of even doing Facebook Live because, I'm most engaged in Instagram. So that was scary for me too. Like, I know people will show up on Instagram. Will they show up on Facebook? But I'm here now. And to be honest with you, I don't care anymore. This feels really good. Like, just sharing this here feels really good. So, the being impeccable with your word in that respect is really important because what I know now is that back then I was unconscious. I didn't even hear it. It was just running in my head and I never caught it. So I have had the good fortune of just having amazing mentorship in many different areas of my life. I consider myself to be very spiritual, and working on my spiritual growth is something that's very important. So I get the opportunity to learn from a lot of different, just amazing, amazing guides. And something I heard recently that gave me clarification on what habits are has really helped me as a coach to see, what's going on with my clients, but also, for myself when I look back and even think of, who I am now. And what I heard was that a habit is something that you don't even know you're doing, that you're unconscious to. So what that means is when I was saying to myself, but, who would ever pay this? Who would ever do this? Or I don't think it's going to happen. Like, I wasn't aware of this, this negative speak that I was having with myself. I wasn't aware of it. It was like a recording just going on. So it was a habit. It was a pattern that was just running. So by me bringing the awareness to you that being impeccable with your word to yourself is really important, and to start really looking for those things. Like, am I saying things without realizing it? Am I saying things to myself? And they're usually just reaction, like, of just naturally talking yourself out of things. They're present. So keep an eye out for that. Start listening to yourself more. When you're in conversations in your business or with friends and family, do you catch yourself saying and responding in a way like this? That's really important, because this is what I meant before when I said this changed, my business, but also my life, because I've grown so much as a person. I'm much more impeccable with my word, not only in my business, but within my life, because if I'm impeccable, I can't just compartmentalize. Like, I know too much. So I'm just more awake. In terms of being impeccable with your word, the reason I started with the conversation we're having with ourselves is because it's very easy to lash out on someone else, to express outwardly, any negative speak that you may have. And for a lot of people, it manifests that way. It's much easier to say, well, that person did this, or they didn't do that, or that was really messed up, and, pointing the finger. So being impeccable with my word, I also know that I have a responsibility as a human and as a person to treat myself with love and respect, but also others. That's really important too. So I find that if I find myself in a situation where I'm starting to get, I don't really consider myself to be a gossip or anything like that, but if I find myself living in a story or repeating something that wasn't, an experience that I really enjoyed, and I'm living in that, and I am perpetuating that other person, like how they didn't see it my way or whatever, like, just the feeling behind that also doesn't feel good, because I'm not being impeccable with my word to them. I'm not treating them with the love and the kindness that they deserve. But ultimately, I also know that for me, if I'm doing that to another, I'm doing it to myself, because I couldn't possibly do that to another if I was feeling good about myself. So this is so important when it comes to business, to your beauty business. We are literally, our hands are on people's bodies. And we have such a close connection with them. And, you're going to be working with them intimately, or you already do, but also there's this business relationship that happens. And sometimes people make other decisions, and sometimes they're not totally happy with the experience one time. And whatever the circumstance is, can you still be impeccable with your word through that circumstance? Because that's really where the growth happens. It is easy to be reactive. It is easy to point out what someone else is doing. Much easier than to point out and to acknowledge, our part in it. So with that, I have to say, if you can clean up your stuff, like, that's the best thing that you can do with your business, because what happens, you're attracting more high vibrational people as well. You're attracting people who want nothing to do with drama, negativity, any of those things. They just want good experiences. So I hope that this is resonating, and if you're someone who has mastered this, fantastic. I've never really been in the circumstance where I've had, situations with clients where it's a back and forth and things like that. And if I've ever felt like a client has wanted to do that, I have exited the situation as quickly as possible. So I absolutely implement silence as a tool and not engaging when someone wants to engage me in something like that, because I know that at the end of the day, if something like that is happening, it is also because they're not being impeccable with their word and they are not loving themselves at that time. So I am doing my best to continue to love myself and also have love and compassion for them. And sometimes that just means, I have to get out of here. I can't be here. I can't be in this conversation. This has to end. I want to share with you a story of something that happened where I feel like I'm in a much better state with it, but where cleaning up, my words, being impeccable with them, like they needed a little bit of work. Um, I have been a coach for 2.5 years, and one of the reasons I started coaching was because I had been in coaching, and it was so it was so transformative for me. It just has been, and I'm very passionate about it. So, but I have also been in different programs and made investments where, to be honest with you, I felt like I didn't get what I signed up for. I didn't get the results I wanted and things like that. And, I remember back then feeling upset because it just didn't work. Like this just didn't work. And it was very, for me to sign up for this and to show up and it was big for me. It was very big. It was, I had never done anything like that before. I had never invested on that level before. And I found myself feeling like in that program I was sinking, and just from the sense of I was a new entrepreneur. So while I got a lot of information, that was helpful because that's also how I got on track to be a coach. It was pointed out to me that I was already mentoring other artists and I could actually create a business around it. So I got that. But what I didn't get, or so I thought, was I didn't get the implementation. So how would I do it? Okay, this sounds like a great idea, but how would I do it? And because of the way that program was set up, most of the information and the coaching, how it happened, it was virtual and it was online. So basically, I was crying over the fact that, I wanted more hands-on support. And I just felt like, okay, videos don't work for me and this and that. So, but here is the thing, when I look back now, that, I see, and I'm so grateful that I feel so differently about it now, because I never was in that experience feeling like, well, this is a piece of crap, but I just felt like it's not working. It's not working. And I was unwilling to take responsibility for the fact, if I'm honest with myself, I didn't do the work because I never sat down and watched every single module and implemented it. What I wanted to be on calls. I wanted someone to answer my immediate questions. I didn't want to go through the process that person had set up. So when I decided to leave the program, and it was challenging for me to leave because I was really, battling the decision. But I when I look back now, there for a while there, I was a bit upset with the coach that I had at that time. But it was me really not being accountable for myself. When I can honestly look back at this and say, everything that was promised to me was delivered. All the information was always accessible to me. And it was my choice to not take advantage of the program that I had signed up for. Back then I felt very differently. And I felt like, well, this program isn't for me. This program doesn't work for me. And the truth is the program would have worked for me, but what I can also acknowledge is it was a great experience for me, because what I learned is that the kind of coaching that I like coaching where it's interactive, where I get to ask questions all the time. So I found the program and the mentors that were able to support me in the way that works best for me. So I hope that that example helps, because sometimes, we're just so convinced that the other person did something, or that we were wronged in some way. And, usually looking back, even if it's true, there's always a learning from it. I learned so much from being in that program, because I learned, wow, okay, so I like a more interactive feel. And that's also what I want to offer my clients, so I offer different things in different ways, because I learned what worked for me and what didn't, so now I've created a program in a way that feels really good to me. So was the experience really valuable? 100%. And it feels really good to me, to be honest with you, that the entire time, even up until this day, I have a clean and healthy relationship with that person. Um, so, in a nutshell, really being impeccable with your word is really important, not just for you, but the other person. Because having, really good relationships and relationships that are respected on both ends is just invaluable. So with that, I also ask you to consider, your social media, your presence on social media. I personally, what I value the most for myself on social media is really doing my best to always put out a message of positivity or something fun or funny. But I do feel that social media is a responsibility. We all have a lot of power. And as it should be, it's a wonderful thing that, we have these amazing platforms to really express ourselves, and share our creativity, which is so wonderful. Our world is truly global now. And then with that, I think the responsibility grows even more, because with this great responsibility, like we can just take it from Spider-Man, with great strength comes great responsibility. Now that we have all this power, this access, what is the message that you want to put out? And the reason why this is so important too, because the first one is on a human level, like, what is it that you want to put out? And are you being impeccable with your word about yourself and about others on social media? I see very frequently, posts and different things about like a poverty mindset. So that's something that I will never post anything where in some way I am confirming or validating a limiting belief or story that I may have that keeps me in a position where I won't grow. And that's what I mean, being impeccable, while I might find something that sounds really funny and, it would get a lot of laughs on social media, if it's in that vein, for me, something that I won't do. So I have that responsibility for myself. But then also, as I'm growing my business, I'm very conscious of who I'm looking to attract. So if I were to follow that thread of, if I'm putting out something with like a poverty mindset, or somehow confirming and validating a limiting belief, what I will attract more of is others, potential clients or people around me who believe in that limiting belief. So I will get more of what I don't want. So I hope that this is making sense, because this really is the 4 agreements are honestly words to live by, but they're honestly words to build a business by as well, because it's just so true. And here's the thing. If you're putting out, you can't possibly attract a different energy, a different vibration of what you're putting out. So I'm going to just start from, if you want high paying clients, if you want quality clients, because usually the types of creatives that come to me are coming to me because they're looking to grow their business, and they're finding that they're not able to convert sales, or they're not able to raise their price points in the way that they want. And I can tell you this, if you want a better quality client and you want more high paying clients, you have to start speaking differently. You have to start thinking differently, and you have to start being different. You have to start being of that vibration, because they are hanging out someplace else. So in order for you to attract it, you just have to be it. It's not even putting the words out. It's like you have to actually be it. Because this attraction thing it's on an energetic level. So really important, and being impeccable with your word is really key. Okay, so the next one is the next agreement is, don't take anything personally. So this is a tricky one. I think, as humans, we can be very reactive. I can say for me, I have had times in my life where I've been very reactive. I still work on it. I'm getting better at it. Sometimes I don't catch it, but I am getting so much better at it, because I can't possibly take anything personally. I know too much about it. So let me give you an example. I'm at the point now that if someone says something that pisses me off, I may not want to admit it at that moment, but I 100% know no one can ever piss me off. No one can ever upset me. No one can ever insult me unless I allow them to, meaning if I let their words matter. Now, this is really important because when someone does something that feels hurtful, typically what happens is, the person is either going to get really defensive, so they'll get upset. Like your reaction would be to either get upset or to cry, right? Like get angry or get sad or get hurt, but it all stems with hurt. You've been hurt. But what they're really doing is they're just tapping into a hurt or something that you already have. So, and here's the thing. For someone to be a perpetrator, they can only be a perpetrator if they are a victim. You can only make someone a victim if you are a victim yourself. So what that means is if someone has done something that's really offensive or flat out done something to intentionally hurt you, that means that they have to be in pain themselves. That's number one. Now, there are circumstances where, truth be told, your interpretation of how someone is saying something or doing something, you're choosing to be hurt by it. And that's not the truth. And I think we all know that happens. I know for me it happens. I definitely was someone who was always like, why is this happening to me? Why are they doing this to me? And the honest truth, people are just living their lives. They're doing what's best for them. And by the way, you should be doing what's best for you. So now that I know, because if I were here saying, I'm going to do 100% of the time what is best for me, because that's my mantra. That's how I'm going to live, because I always want to be my own joy. And because I know that if I'm always taking care of myself and doing what's best for me, everyone else will always get the best of me. So if I'm always doing what's right for me, how could I possibly be offended and hurt by someone doing what's best for them? So this is why enlightenment and being conscious really is, you can't go back, because now I can't lie to myself and say, well, that person messed up, or I have a right to be upset. Like, yeah, I have a right to be upset. I could be if I want to, but I know the truth. The truth is either I'm interpreting this in a way where I'm creating myself to be the victim, or the other truth is they are in so much pain that they're lashing out on me at this moment. So if that's the case, then I have the option here to stay in this and still be a part of it. Or how about I just leave it and say, hey, we'll talk later. So this is about being conscious and mastering the self, because as someone who is growing a business, now when you master all of these things, now you can pour that back into your business. And the more that you are able to do that, because certainly as a beauty professional, my belief is that you're a healer. People come to you to feel better. So you will also, because of that, experience people who are not feeling their best. And they may be reactive. So if you can always look at it through that veil, life becomes a lot easier. And then also, not taking anything personally also means cleaning that up. If it's happening in your personal life, anything, cleaning it up before you actually show up for your clients, and really being conscious of, okay, this is not about me right now. I'm not taking any of this personally. I'm just going to show up and do and be for my client, because that's why they're here. And if they're going through a tough moment, I will do my best to support them and hold the space for them. And if it's to the point where it's somehow, the relationship, I'm not being honored and respected, I'm also going to put a stop to it. It's really important. Really, really important. I will give you an example of a time, in my coaching business where not taking things personally has really come in handy. When I first started coaching and I first started learning the process of sales, there's an enrollment process basically that happens with it. I spent a lot of time, hours and hours and hours on the phone with different artists, talking to them about what their challenges were, what they were looking to grow in their business. And then if it felt like a fit, offering them an option to take part in my coaching program. And I will tell you, probably for the first, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years, and I've been coaching for almost 3 years now. But so let's say for 2 years of that, I have taken the rejection and the no personally. If they said no, if they said it wasn't a fit for them, if they weren't ready to, to start at the moment or whatever, I always took it personally. I always took it like I was being rejected. And it was really hurtful because it's like, well, why isn't my program good enough for you? And the truth is they are just doing what's best for them. It wasn't the right fit or the right time. It wasn't right. So, and I would hear this, my coach would say to me, it's like, it's not, and I share this with you because, as I talk more about, sales in the future, like, something you're going to have to know, like you're going to hear no for the rest of your life. You're going to hear yeses for sure, but you're always going to hear no's. And if you understand more of why people are saying no, because there's something going on in their head too. So they're going through their own stuff. And if they land on a no, it really has nothing to do with you, which, by the way, when they say yes, it's got nothing to do with you either. So not taking things personally is really, really key. And as I continue to share, sales and marketing material, it's going to be that much more important because some of the things that you may have been doing up until this point may change. And you may put yourself in a more open space, a more vulnerable space to be seen so that your business can grow. But with that, learning how to not take things personally and not feeling rejected, is key. Is key because, the no's really don't go away. And I mean, think about an actor, who goes on auditions and they hear no constantly. It's the same thing when you have your business, and in your sales, you have to start, kind of growing that muscle so that you can take yourself out of it and that you are not a pile of tears or that your whole life didn't end every time someone says no, because it's just, it'll be a very painful existence that way. So the next agreement is don't make assumptions. So, in life, I think we all know this, right? Don't assume anything. And again, I'm getting better at it. I share these, you guys, with the full knowing that, my growth and my work is never done. And I really believe that for all of us, we will continue to grow for the rest of our lives. But I get better at it every time. So don't assume. Okay, so let me tell you how this works in life and in business. Don't you dare assume that someone would say no. Don't you dare. You have no idea. Go for it. Try it. If they say no, okay, you tried, right? At least you know. But don't assume that someone will say no to what your beautiful artistry is. Don't ever assume that. And also, don't assume you know why they said no, even if they told you why they said no. Because there's always a story, a true story that's going on, and it may be buried a little lower below the surface than they even know. So just don't assume. And if you want to assume, make the assumption that for whatever reason, the right choice was made and that things are exactly right as they are supposed to be. That's a safe assumption to make. I find that in my business, listen, it is challenging to be an entrepreneur. It is challenging to be in business for yourself because, but it's challenging in a really beautiful way. Meaning that, there's days I wake up and I think, it would be really cool to just, for things to be a little bit easier right now. I say that sometimes. Because when you own your own business and it is the only thing that you do and it's your livelihood, you're constantly trying stuff and thinking of things and will this work and should I do this and should I try this and let me roll this out and how did this work? Was this successful? Did I generate with this what I wanted to generate? So there's this constant, just thinking and trying and implementing. So can be a little bit tiring sometimes. And there's times because of it, like just being in that it would sometimes, I never think it would be easier to work for someone else, only from the sense of like, it would be great to have a stable paycheck. But then when I think of it, it's like, well, if I had a stable paycheck, I wouldn't work as hard. I recently turned down a wonderful opportunity to go back to TV, and be the department head for a show. And I've done it in the past, and it sounded very exciting to me, and I almost said yes. And I had to really be honest with myself. And what I realized was that the biggest attractive thing about it was having a steady paycheck. And when I got to the root of it, I realized like, wow, like that would never be fair to that show, to that production, because I wouldn't be there 100%, like if I'm not 100% excited to be there and to play and explore, and then I'm not 100%, I could never deliver what they deserve. And then also, do I want to live a complacent life? So, and the reason I say this is because, as you are an entrepreneur and as you continue to grow your business, and whether you work for someone else or not, it doesn't really matter. You're constantly just in that state of figuring things out and trying things, and assumptions can be really detrimental if you're making the wrong ones. So, the assumption that I make within my business is, I assume that if I try this out, I'm going to figure out what the next thing is, because I always do. Every time I've launched a coaching program or an event or something new, I've never known how it's going to work. But after I've done it, I've been able to look back and say, okay, I usually do it again, and I usually realize I like it. And then I go back and I think, how can I do this differently? What did I learn? I learned so much more, and it becomes easier. So these assumptions, if you're assuming it's not going to work, or why would anybody hire you? Again, it's going back to being impeccable with the word. Don't make those assumptions. You have no idea. If you have something to offer and to put out into the world, there's someone out there waiting to receive it. So, again, I would highly recommend putting all of the 4 agreements on a Post-it, having several of them, and just put like in the bathroom, in your workspace, wherever. Like those reminders for me really help, because if I'm catching myself, in a negative state, or somehow making myself the victim, when I see things like that, it just pulls me out of it. I remember like, okay, I'm not a victim. I'm absolutely not. I can do this. So just remember that assumptions don't help. And also, when others make decisions about you and your business, whether to move forward with you or not, it never has anything to do with you, ever. It is always about what is best for them. That's how it is. And that's how it should be, So if they're doing it, you do it too. You keep doing what's best for you. Okay. And then lastly, the best agreement is always do your best. Now, always do your best looks very different at different times. Always do your best can mean, when you show up for work and whatever you're going to do it 100% to your best capability. But sometimes always doing your best is taking a self-care day, understanding that this isn't easy. Well, let me be impeccable with my word. This can be challenging. Because it can be, but challenges are also beautiful. That's how we grow. So the one question that I do ask myself, when I'm going through a tough moment, or when I feel like I'm sure, or when I get really scared, is this going to work, or what's going to happen next? I start asking myself, do I believe, did I do everything? Am I doing everything that I believe that I can do to really show up for this? Yes. Always yes. And confidently yes. And if it's a no, that's okay. If it's a no, what you do have is the opportunity now to, fully show up if you're really honest with yourself. And then sometimes, being honest enough to say, am I tired? Am I pushing too hard? Am I pushing too hard? Am I trying too hard? Because that also, can get in the way. And then sometimes I can say yes. And then sometimes it gives me the permission to say, okay, well then today is, I'm just going to take care of myself today. I'm going to go to a movie today. I'm going to go get a massage today. That's really important too. We're going to be talking a lot more about business things as we're moving forward. And I am excited. I am actually very excited about this group and this weekly show, because everything you can think of, everything you've thought of that you want is absolutely possible. Possible. Like, it already exists. There's nothing you can think of that's impossible. And I recognized in a very grateful way that starting off this way on this, for this group, I could have started off with like, hey, if you do this, here's a sales technique, go do this and see if it works. I could very much have done that. And there'll be some of that. However, I'm so grateful that I started with a topic like this, because what I realize is that, and I'm just getting it now, what I realize is that had I started with that, I feel like I would be contributing to the conversation of, I feel like I would be contributing to the growth of businesses in an unconscious way. Meaning that what I really believe in, and if you're here and if you're, a trailblazer, if you've signed up to be that, and this doesn't resonate, this may not be for you. So I am actually very happy that I started with this topic, because here's the thing. I very much believe that everything that you want it's there. Me too. I totally believe it. Everything, it's already here. It's already here. And I know that the truth of it is that to have it manifest in my physical world only means that I just have to keep shifting my vibration to be in the state where that reality just appears for me. And it takes the fine-tuning and the cleaning up. And if I were to share with you just, a sales strategy, go out there, go make money, it's not really working on shifting the vibration in a way where it is a strong foundation for you to really succeed in your definition of success, whatever the way that may be. Like, my intention for you is to have everything that you want, but also have it long term, and also to understand that things are going to change for the rest of your life. Forever, things will continue to change. So the more that you can master yourself, the more that you can show up and understand how to respond to the world that you are in a way where now you are at equilibrium, now that ascension can start to happen. And when that ascension starts to happen, it's abundance. And abundance is the ability to do what you need to do whenever you need to do it. It has nothing to do with money. It is having freedom. It is just knowing that it's possible, feeling free to do it, not being in the prison of feeling like you have to just make money because it's the only way to survive. So if you made it this long, all the way to the end of this, you're supposed to be here. So welcome. And if you didn't make it, that's okay. I'm sending you so much love, unconditional love, wherever you are, because I know you can feel it anyway. And I know that you're going to find, the thing that's for you. But for those who have stayed, thank you so much for sharing in this with me. I'm very excited to just start to have this conversation and to have a more interactive conversation with you moving forward. And I'm looking forward to next week. So just to give you a sneak peek about what we're going to be talking about next week, I actually put it in my phone. Hold on, let me make sure. Oh, I know what it is. We are going to be talking about sales. And I'm going to share with you the difference between having a business that sells based on price in comparison to a business that sells based on value. And I have a business that is based on value. So the types of investments that I set for my programs and things like that are different for many different reasons. It's not only for financial gains, it's also I'm using it as a filtration system. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about what both kinds of businesses look like. So then you have an option to decide which one works best for me now, because they both work. It'll just depend on, where you're at and what you want to do. So thank you so much for being here today. And whenever you see this, I'm really excited. And I'll see you next week. Feel free to comment and leave anything, any comments, and I'll make sure to address them. I'll see you next week. Have a wonderful rest of the week. Bye.